Dim the lights. Here we go. After the nationwide vote, the winner of American Idol Season 10 is Scotty McCreery!
Judy, it is so good catching up with you. We've been trying to make this happen for the last month or two. We never could make it happen in Garner, so here I am now in Kansas City, and finally you were able to break away from the American Idol crew for a few minutes.
So delighted to see familiar faces from Garner. I think it worked out perfect. It was meant to be.
First of all the songs that Scotty performed on American Idol, what was your very favorite?
Oh, my favorite song he did on Idol. You know, every song had a little story that went behind it and how Scotty and I came to choose it. We worked together a lot on song choice. For example, I loved Country Comfort that Elton John did because there was a shout out to my mother, Scotty's grandma. But I think one of my favorites was Gone, because Scotty was trying to pick a song that really was more up-tempo and showed him break out of that slow country ballad mold. And actually, he and I were in the apartment when we were trying to choose a song for 21st Century. We were trying to choose a different type of country song that was kind of southern rock but had somewhat clean lyrics. And I remember it was about 2 in the morning, and I yelled out, "Gone, Scotty, listen to Gone," because we were on YouTube checking out all these artists. And he said, "Okay." It was late. He said, I'll listen to it in the morning. And when he got to the studio, and the producers make the kids, work with a variety of songs, they really took off with Gone. Gone is really a duet, Montgomery Gentry. It's a duet, and so it was a lot of work for Scott to sing the whole song by himself. So it took a lot of power for Scotty to pull that off. And he said it was the only song on Idol where he broke out in the sweat while he was doing it, because he was trying to move and get a little action in there, but he was really singing 2 parts of that song to pull it off. And he got rave reviews that night, and I think that really showed that Scott wasn't your typical slow country crooner.
Go back to the Milwaukee audition last summer. Wow. Everything has happened since then. If you had the chance for one do-over, what would it be?
Wow, if I had the chance for one do-over. Looking back, we really didn't have any huge bumps in the road, things that we weren't prepared for. Scotty and I really did our homework before we left, actually even for Hollywood Week. But if I had had any clue he was going to get this far and actually win the competition, I think I would have encouraged him to spend every spare minute he had with his friends at home, and his church activities, his time at school, going to football games and basketball games that he did. But he loved to have his friends come over and spend the night. He and his buddies, they called them Man Fest, and they always left the house in disarray, so they always had to talk me into these Man Fest. But that's the number one thing he missed on the show, was his connection back home, with his peers, people that were like-minded and the same age. If I'd had any clue when we left home, I think it was February 15th, if I had any clue we would not be going home, I would have encouraged him to have spent every spare minute with his friends and the activities he loved.
Okay, so when you're starting the whole thing off then, did you think through, we might win this thing? What?
In the back of my mind, I thought there was a possibility, because Scotty had just started to do some performances in the last year, and I would be in the background and I would hear some of the response from people in the audience, from all age ranges, little girls to grandparents, all races. And so in the background, I thought, wow, he really is getting a response from the audience. People would clap in the middle of his performance when he was at the JCC Performing Arts Center. There's a businesswoman in our community, when Scotty sang Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning at the historic auditorium, just as a filler before the show, there was a business lady on the front row that's kind of a tough cookie, and she was crying. And at the end of the performance, I said, "Scott, did you see who was crying on the front row?" I said, I think you've got something. So in the back of my mind, I thought, based on those responses, he might have a chance. But when we packed and left home the middle of February, I didn't pack enough There were never enough shoes. I didn't have the right type of clothes for Scott because we just had no idea we'd be there until the end of May.
Wow. Now let's think back to May 25th. In those final seconds, Ryan Seacrest was milking the thing, making it dramatic. We just knew, just announce it. Who is it? Who is it? What were you thinking?
When Ryan was getting ready to announce the winner, I was holding Mike's hand, I was holding Ashley's hand, and I knew at that moment, no matter if Scott was first place or runner-up, that our lives were going to change forever because he had gotten such a huge response all across the country. Even people in other countries had contacted us. We had spoken with people in Australia, New Zealand, and Europe. I just knew from that response that our lives would change. He would be in the public eye. And I just didn't know what to expect, but I knew there was no turning back at that point.
Okay. Now, we heard it from several of the people who work with American Idol back when we had the hometown visit in Garner. Scotty's tutor, his personal guard, the producer, they all said, never has there been a more successful hometown visit than this one. Never have we had bigger attendance. Never has there been more support for the way it was organized. Nothing but accolades from that group. So what do you make of that? How did that make you feel that the hometown had done such a good
Wow.
preparation?
Neil, I knew in my heart that Garner would pull off something really big. Number one, to back up. I feel like if you're a person of faith, there was higher power involved. This was all part of a bigger plan looking back. And I feel like our community is a part of that plan to do good things for people and businesses, but I also feel like Scott, it's part of God's plan for him to be a light in this, world of pop culture and entertainment. And I feel like Garner was an instrument for that. It's a basic human need to want to be connected, and in Garner there's so many great opportunities to be connected to whether you're in the chamber or your local church or your school or your dance group or Garnertown players. And so there was so much organization there, such quality people. Really highly ethical people, strong work ethic. And I knew that they were so organized. I knew there was a great cohesive relationship between the town government and the chamber and local churches and the high school. I just had this warm, fuzzy feeling as Scotty approached the top three that all those entities would come together for the common good, not necessarily for the fame and the glory, but because it was a good thing. There were so many good things that came out of that. And once I heard that the town of Garner had made contact with another location in the South that had a hometown visit, I knew that it would go off without a hitch. I had no clue that we'd have more people show up for the event than actually lived in the town of Garner, and that kind of blew me away. And see, Scotty and I had been living on the West Coast. We only caught little glimpses of what was happening back home. And so we had not been home since February. And when we got to Garner that day and we saw the signs with the guitars and we saw the families walking down the sidewalks of Lake Benson Park, and how organized things were at Lake Benson. I've gone there to see the symphony play almost every July 3rd for probably the last 10, 12 years. But I had never seen a stage set up like that. And there's, the big Garner logo and the lights. And I thought, oh my goodness, all this was for Scotty. But, and it really had a carnival type of state fair atmosphere. You could get a corn dog and get a little fried dough and had all kinds of great acts. And when looking back, it was just, the movie The Perfect Storm, it was like the perfect event, The powers that be were highly organized, worked well together, and it was just a great thing for the community.
And I understand we might even get more accolades for that the production is up for an Emmy.
Exactly. The producer that worked on that home visit for Scotty had won an Emmy years prior for another Idol contestant. And so she was really upfront that, that would be a great thing. She'd love to have another Emmy in her back pocket. And as soon as she said that, I knew Garner could pull it off because there's so many people tied into our town government and in the chamber that have a performing arts background or who were a proponent of the arts. And highly organized, great business relationships, and I just knew they could make it happen. And I told that producer, I said, let me tell you, Garner's going to do it big. Really. And our town was the perfect size because like Lauren Elena, who is from Rossville, Georgia, her community loves her. But that town is only 3,000 people. And so they had to go to Chattanooga, 10 minutes north, to really organize Lauren's hometown visit. The community didn't have the resources. But then likewise on the show, I became friends with Pisha McPhee, whose daughter Catherine had been a runner-up the year Taylor Hicks
Yes.
won. Well, she shared that sometimes the kids, when they're from bigger towns, like they were from the Los Angeles area, it's hard to get a big crowd to turn out to the AT&T store visit, to the local high school, because you've got such a huge area, people really don't feel connected. And so Garner, with our 26,000 people, I mean, I just think we were the right size to make it feel like a hometown, but with that big city aura around it.
Well, I hope we can add an Emmy now
Oh,
to the list of
that'd
accolades.
just be great.
How has this whole American Idol thing affected your family? You, Mike, his sister, how's it affected you?
Well, looking back, it happened at the right time. As a mom, I really am struggling with the fact that at 17, Scotty's life has changed forever. But as far as the family perspective, his older sister Ashley is a junior at UNC Charlotte, so Ashley was kind of off doing her thing at college. Mike travels a lot with his company, works for Schneider Electric. I've sold real estate, and I had renewed my teaching certificate. I was going to go back and teach. But there were all things that I could put on the back burner. I referred my real estate business out, sold my little tanning salon I had in Clayton, talked to Mr. Cook at the high school about how it wasn't a good time to go back and teach right now. So it all worked out. It wasn't like I had preschoolers at home or had a daughter that was still in high school.
Right, okay. Now, I've heard it said that in all 10 seasons of American Idol, never has there been a contestant who was so closely tied to his hometown. So now the millions who know Scotty know that he's Scotty from Garner. I've got to wonder, is the fact that you're a Garner businesswoman and you understand the importance of a town's image, the whole public relations, did that in any way play into how Scotty became not just Scotty McCreery, but Garner's Scotty McCreery?
I think so, because I knew that we would need town support, and then the tentacles from that would spread out among the state. But, from being in sales and marketing and being in real estate the last 14 years, I knew how important branding was. And I was proud, and Scotty also proud of our hometown. So Scotty and I had discussed when we went to Hollywood Week, we're always going to say we're from Garner now.
Okay.
Well, he slipped up on the clip they showed on television. The producers or the judges asked where you're from, and he said, I'm from Raleigh. He said, really, a Garner, which is just outside of Raleigh. Well, when the clip aired on television, they didn't show him backtracking, saying, really, Garner, outside of Raleigh. And it just showed that he said he was from Raleigh. And we had a little backlash at home. And that was not a part of our plan. We always wanted to have Garner front and center.
Okay.
And every time he got an opportunity, he had on his Garner high school shirt, Garner baseball, Blue Cruise, Garner baseball cap. Yeah, it was really neat. We really wanted to keep Garner front and center. Really because we were proud of our hometown. We told people it was like an overgrown Mayberry.
I Love You This Big has had tremendous success on the charts. When you first heard him sing it, did you have any idea it would make the top 10 and #1 on the iTunes list?
No. When I first heard that song, we were still in our little apartment off Wilshire Boulevard where they had the final contestants. And he came in with this CD, and he had just, worked with the producers that day, and Nigel on the show, and some people from Nashville, and he had listened to several songs, and he said, okay, Mom, it's going to be this song for my finale song, I Love You This Big. And so I listened to it, and it was just kind of sleepy and slow, and I was like, really? And I just wasn't like jumping up and down. It wasn't like a Gone song or something that, makes you want to move. But the song took off. I think it was the highest charting country single since Billboard has kept records. I was blown away. I'm like, really? But then the song really grew on me. It's, and Scotty has expressed there's many ways you can interpret that song, I Love You This Big. It can be a child talking to their parent, I love you this big. It can be romantic love. He shared at Disney when he did the parade shortly after the show, it can show the love the Savior has for you as his arms are stretched out on the cross. So Scotty has done an excellent job interpreting that song, and he really sings it from his heart. I've heard people say it's already been sung at weddings. So it was a nice finale moment. and I think it had a lot of appeal to different ages and types of people.
Okay, so we hear that's the first of many. There's an album underway right now. What can you tell us about the album?
Oh, I wish I could tell you a lot, but I have to kind of keep it under wraps. But the album should be released the first week of October. He's already laid all the vocals for the album. He got pitched just excellent material from just the top songwriters in Nashville. They wanted to be a part of Scotty's project. So I know people in his management company and at Mercury in Nashville, they listened to tons of songs, and then they would filter down to Scotty. They would pitch him the songs and say, we like this, what do you think of this? There were a couple songs that as soon as I heard them or Scotty would want my opinion, I would just like shed a few tears. And Scotty's like, gotta do it, I want that song. If he saw that it got that type of reaction. Songs about a mother's love. There is a Christian song about the Bible. There's some songs that make you want to get up and dance. To me, a song's got to make you want to dance or makes you want to cry. I mean, that's a winner either way. And so if you like I Love You This Big, I mean, you're going to just flip out over the album. I know I'm prejudiced, I'm his mother, but not only did he get excellent material pitched to him, but to me, his producer is tops in the world. He's working with Mark Bright, who also produced Carrie Underwood's first albums. Just a wonderful gentleman. He's a strong Christian. The first time we went into Starstruck Studios for Scotty to have a recording session with Mark, there were some excellent Nashville instrumentalists there. And Mark said, I just feel like we should pray before we start recording. And I was like, oh, sounds good to me. And that didn't happen in the studios he worked at in Los Angeles, just for whatever reason. It was just a different vibe. And so in that first recording session in Nashville, there was just a whole lot of love. There were a whole lot of strokes, a whole lot of hugging, a whole lot of thumbs up. His producer loves to say, let her rip, tater chip. And we just laughed and had a great time. Scotty actually laid 5 songs, I believe, that first recording session. Yeah, and he's gotten everything finished up, and the album launch date is still all of August, all of September, 2 months away. But I think it's pretty much wrapped up.
Okay, so you went from American Idol competition, from what I understand, pretty quickly into rehearsals for the tour. Mm-hmm. And the tour is night after night, different cities. How has there been time to record an album?
Well, the kids get a day off every 3 or 4 days. And so it's been quite an education. What we've learned is if you have the right microphone sent to the recording studio, you can really record anywhere. So Mark Bright would have the equipment FedExed. For example, Scotty recorded some in Portland when the tour was there, this really neat little studio called Dead Aunt Thelma's. But Mark FedExed the microphone to Dead Aunt Thelma's, and we had a great recording session there. And then we also recorded some in Hollywood. Same thing, Mark would FedEx the equipment from Nashville, and he would always bring his sound engineer, Derek Basin, just walks on water also. So as long as we had Mark there and Derek and the right microphone, we didn't necessarily have to be in Nashville to record.
Okay. Well, now that you're telling us some of the things that we wouldn't normally know, so I'd like to know, what is a day in the life of the mom who is on a tour? I mean, you're living out of a bus. What's a day like?
Oh, wow. Typically, we're in a hotel in the early hours of the morning. We roll into the venue, the town, somewhere between 4 a.m. and maybe 6 a.m.
So you slept on the bus?
Right, we slept on the bus. We usually pull out of our venues 11:30 to midnight. Everybody has a bunk. I'm on the girls' bus, thankfully. I heard at one point they were thinking of putting me on the boys' bus with Scotty. I'm like, that would not have worked. So I'm on the girls' bus. There's 2 other moms. Thea's mother, Cynthia, travels as well, and then Lauren's mom, Christy, we're on the bus as well with the girl contestants. We travel through the night, arrive at a venue between maybe 4 and 6 a.m., check into a hotel. They really put us up in nice hotels, so then we can go back to sleep, kids can take a shower, and then we leave the hotel sometime between 12 and 1, and then we'll go to the venue. When we get to the venue, there's catering already set up. We have a full tractor trailer that has a kitchen on it, and then Cisco brings in the food, and so catering is very nice. I mean, we just have to watch our calories, because Jen, the girl that's the head chef, actually survived or was on Hell's Kitchen. I mean, she is the real deal. So we have excellent food waiting for us when we get there. Kids have press from 2 to 3, country radio or maybe a phone interview with a newspaper. Sound check at 4. Typically during that time I'm trying to walk the steps. I'm trying to challenge myself to walk the steps in every venue to walk off this good catering. Then one meet and greet at 4:30 for like radio contest winners, and then another meet and greet about 5:15 for the people, the VIP ticket holders. Those people paid about $250 for a ticket, so they have their own private meet and greet. I try to attend the meet and greets and help Scotty. There's a security guard that stands with Scotty that helps him facilitate the autographs. And I'll say, can I help take a picture? So everyone can jump up there, and then I'll take the picture and hand it off just to kind of help the process keep moving along. 6 o'clock meet and greets are over. We can go to catering. The show actually starts at 7:15, but Scotty doesn't appear until after 9. They keep the winner till the end. So Scotty might disappear and go take a nap on the bus while the other kids are doing the first part of the show. And Scotty loves sports, and when we were in New Orleans, University of New Orleans was having a baseball game next door, and Scotty came outside, and it was like 7. He wasn't going to go on stage for 2 hours. He's like, come on, Mom, let's jump the fence and go see that baseball game. And I'm like, Scott, they will have a fit if they think we're just like going rogue. But seriously, he jumped this little concrete barrier, and then he pulled me over, and we went hustling down this track. We did. We had a ball. New Orleans, we were right off the lake, and it was hot. But, Scott goes around with this camo hat thinking he's not recognizable. But we just walked up in the bleachers and we sat there. Nobody recognized us. I mean, it brought back memories of being at Trojan Field back home, summer baseball. It was just great. And then we, watched a couple innings, and then we, jumped back over the fence and went in the venue. I mean, we told a few people a few days later what we did. But,
So when you slipped out the back door today to meet me for this interview, it's not the first time you've done that, huh?
Going rogue. No, but today it wasn't quite, I didn't have to jump any fences today.
Well, we've had some out-of-town tourists stop by the chamber. They asked questions about Scotty. Where's the grocery store where he worked? Where does he live? Of course, we never tell them where Scotty lives.
They find us anyway.
Well, that was my question. Do any of those tourists ever find their way to your house?
Yes, I haven't been home but like 6 days since February, but my husband has stories all the time. And it's not just teenagers or little girls or like grandparents. And Mike says he'll look out the window and somebody's standing in the front yard taking a picture. We have a front porch on the front of our house, and Mike said one night he was laying in bed, and there was this flash that came through the blinds, and it scared him to death, and the dog started to bark, but he thinks somebody was taking a picture of our house, outside at night. But he's had a handful of people ring the doorbell and say, are you Scotty's dad? And we're on our way back to Texas from the Outer Banks. Can my daughter get a picture with you? And then one dad said, does Scotty still play baseball? And my husband's like, sure, I play baseball too. And he said, well, can I get my son out of the van? Will you play catch with my son? And it's like, and Mike is so kind. He's like, sure. So Mike says he's throwing ball with this little kid in the front yard. And Neil, at the entrance of our neighborhood in Heather Woods, there's this big Scotty banner.
Yes.
Heather Woods loves you this big. Well, Mike said he came home one day and it looked to be an Amish family, in their long dresses and their little caps. There was an Amish family standing in front of that sign, and somebody was taking their picture.
Amazing.
Very amazing.
Well, we did have one senior citizen came through, a lady. She said, do you have a Garner map? And I said, yes, we do. And just for something to say, I said, let me guess, are you trying to find Scotty McCreery's house? She said, no, we're trying to find the Lowe's where he worked. Can you tell us where that? So she's serious, had come from Maryland.
Really?
She was traveling through and wanted to find the Lowe's where he worked. So.
Oh, but I just love it. I mean, people visit his high school, they visit our church. We've had quite a few visitors at our church, and a handful of people that have joined because of the influence our church has had. They wore the yellow Team Scotty shirts the day of the home visit, and they helped facilitate people finding the shuttle or finding the porta potty, that type of thing. And then they handed out Scotty tracts about his testimony.
Yes.
So we've had a lot of people visit the community and find our church through that. But the grocery store, Terry, the manager there, was great. Had a life-size cutout made of Scotty, and people would have their picture taken next to the cutout.
With all the success, all this notoriety, any of that father or mother of a 17-year-old knowing that her son is now, almost overnight, become a public figure?
Yes, I have a great deal of angst about it. I mean, I've said I don't know if I would have really taken that audition serious or even went to Milwaukee if I thought he was going to win like the whole thing, because I'm not ready for him to check out of teenagehood at 17. I mean, he was 16 when he auditioned. You know, he'll be 18 this coming fall. But Scotty's the type of kid that he won't be the life of the party, but he wants to be in the middle of his buddies and what's happening. And so he's been somewhat isolated. And so, you know, everybody has something that makes them tick. You know, for some it might be, you know, a big shopping trip or a football game. But Scotty just wants to be around people similar to him. And that gives me a lot of anxiety that he's not around, you know, 17 and 18 and 19-year-olds, and he's not sitting behind the desk in school, and he didn't play baseball last spring. And everyone talks about how grounded he is and how he's like an old man trapped in this young body, but that's what's made him grounded. I mean, seriously, his community network, his youth group at church, his buddies at the high school. You know, luckily our kids never had to move out of Garner growing up. You know, I sell real estate, so we did move in our fair share of houses, but they never had to leave Garner. And so the kids that Scotty's in high school with, he was with them in the nursery at church as a baby, and grew up with through church, and played baseball with some of those same boys, and sang in the praise band at church, and played baseball at Garner baseball. And that's what's made him grounded. And so he hasn't had that for 6-7 months. And so anyway, I'm just trying to put the hammer down and letting the powers that be know that he will be back in school next year. Not the whole year, I mean, but he's a senior, and you're only 18 once. And so, you know, his dad and I are trying to work out that at least he's on campus about 50% of the year.
Okay.
Can go to the prom, hopefully play a little more baseball, maybe do the Asheboro Leadership Retreat, all those things that, you know, you expect to do when you're a senior at Garner High School. He could finish school online, but I don't want him to feel like he's forced to sit in front of a computer to finish his senior year. And he wants his diploma to come from Garner High School. I am not kidding about that. I mean, and the school is supportive of that as well.
Good. Well, Judy, there is a whole group gathered. There are elected officials from Garner there. There are business leaders from Garner there. Chamber members are there. What would you like to tell them?
Oh, thank you so much for the support. I mean, it is so humbling to see how everybody jumped on Scotty's bandwagon. And it wasn't about themselves or really about Scotty. It was about doing a good thing, you know, because I really think, you know, Scotty's the real deal. He's still 17. He's still a boy. You know, I have a fear that there's a target on him and people are just waiting to see him mess up. But I think deep down people know he's good. He's genuine, and they wanted to be supportive of that. And hopefully Scotty will be able to return that and do good things with his talent. And I just appreciate the money, the prayers, everything people did to support him to help get him to where he is now.
Well, Judy, I thank you for this time. I've got
Thank
a lot
you.
more questions, but I'm afraid they're going to start looking for you back at the Sprint Center.
Okay.
So thank you for taking the time.
Certainly.
You, Mike, and Scotty have done an incredible job as ambassadors for Garner. If you could pick the people, the qualities you would want to represent your town, I cannot imagine finding anybody more perfect for the job than you guys.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thanks,
Thank
Neil.
you.
I know I'm still young, but I know how I feel. I might not have too much experience, but I know when love is real. By the way my heart starts pounding,